My name is Nick Garner. I'm head of search for Unibet. We're a big online betting company. Revenue is about 150 million a year. I've got a team of 14 people in the business doing SEO and content and so on. And my Twitter handle is @NickGarner. Good question. Okay, what did I want to be when I was a kid? I wanted to do... When I was very young, I wanted to be an antiques dealer. So my parents were into all that kind of thing. When I was 20, I wanted to be in marketing. And I bought an IBM PS1. I started messing around with BASIC and just getting my head around that. Then I got into building things in the 90s. I had a construction company. And then 98, the internet came along for me, and I did 5 years of apprenticeship. So essentially, I just learned all my SEO then, because I always knew that sites needed traffic, and you get it from SEO. And that's my SEO story, basically.
Wow,
yeah.
Okay,
Antiques dealer.
Yeah.
I know, it's weird. Antiques dealer and marketeer. Interesting combination. But no.
Lovejoy. It's just.
But I've always been into building things and techie stuff and human behaviour, and that's why marketing has always been a sort of backdrop.
Okay, so it's always been quite prevalent in your interest.
Oh yeah.
Oh, okay.
I like its adversarial nature. I like pushing boundaries, and I like being the guy who fought back. I know it sounds a bit anarchic, but I think it's also a business of ideas, because no one really knows the truth. Nobody, except a few people in an organization in California.
Yes. Yeah.
So for that reason, there's a lot of hypothesis and a lot of conceptual thinking, and I really love conceptual thinking, but I love it mixed in with techie stuff.
Yeah.
So I think the real answer is it's the conceptual nature of SEO, which is fascinating. Okay, so SEO in general, I think it's pushing against the tide. I think ultimately anyone who gets in the way of Google making money is in for a tough time. It's just a fact.
Yes, yeah.
About SEOers in general, I think most of them talk shit because because it's all hypothesis. Anyone who with a more plausible hypothesis that talks it up better than somebody else is the guy who's got the right answer. But the reality is very few people know, because ultimately SEO is about doing stuff and learning from what you do.
Of course, yeah.
But on a secondary level to that, one of the things that I'm also really big into is the whole idea of setting up standards within SEO, so that there are benchmarks you can work off, and not necessarily having a certification process, but making it simpler for people outside of SEO to know whether you're good or not, other than your rep as a person who's done stuff well in the past.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. We know there's a lot of so-called SEO rock stars out there that have built a bit of their reputation on things that they've done 5 years ago. So
I know, and they still hang out.
Listen to what they have to say.
But Google are happy with that because it creates a certain amount of FUD, as in fear, uncertainty, and doubt. And if there's a lot of mixed messaging going on, they're happy because it just makes SEO a tougher place to be in. The very first thing is budgeting processes. I just think it's not really something anyone pays enough attention to. And the budgeting process ultimately boils down to understanding what it takes to rank for a given phrase or for a basket of phrases. And in Unibet, this is something I've done an awful lot of work on, and it's been a massive help to nail that process. So the first thing is nail the budget, nail the blueprint for what you need to achieve, and then obviously you can nail the execution piece. What generally happens though is that people don't sort out the blueprint, they don't really know what they need to go and get, they ask the client for money, but they don't know how much they really need to get the result, and then life carries on, and it's all a bit too foggy. Yeah, I've had to do an awful lot of this internally. I think ultimately there are two parts now. One is you can't say that you're going to get value on ROI because simply the metrics are getting too fuzzy with not provided and so on. What you can talk about is value in brand reputation, and also in social proof building. So Google have done a really interesting piece on something called zero moment of truth. Now essentially, in very simple terms, before the internet, when I grew up, there was brand stimulus, so there was stuff on telly that said, go and buy this. I go, oh, that's really good. I go to the shop. The salesman knows more than I do about these things, tells me to buy that particular one because he makes the most money. I buy it. I like it. I tell a couple of friends. I don't like it. I tell a few more friends. Basically, negative word of mouth didn't travel. Today, very different story. Brand stimulus, social proof online, found because Google is around the place. In other words, search engines excavate information and bring it up to the fore. The shopping cart, where now users know more than the salesman, so they control user feedback through social media and review sites and so on, which then feeds back into social proof. Now the big thing for brands is to understand that stuff and then start to work the social proof bit. So you have to be a bit brave, because you've got to assume that there's no real tracking involved, because you can't track ROI if you're tracking positive stimulus on third-party websites for potential customers. But the fact is, it's logical that it works. There's data to prove it works. And so I would say this is the big thing that brands should be looking at very closely. Well, actually, it's kind of an interesting one, because there's the idiot answer and there's actually the total opposite answer. The idiot answer is, oh, they don't know how to do meta tags or title tags. But the truth is that when you look at big websites that have nothing but meta tags, they're all the same across the whole site, or their on-site optimization is a mess. You may go, well, they don't have a clue, they're idiots. But in fact, when you dig into it, what you find is that so many enterprise websites have so much technical debt that actually it's impossible for them to change the title tag that runs across 2 million pages. They just can't. And so the biggest stupid errors that I see are actually not stupid at all. It's just that people don't necessarily dig into it enough and find the real answer, which is technical debt. And that's why it's a kind of deceptive situation.
It's really interesting there. I like that.
And Unibet suffers from this, just like so many other enterprise sites.
I was going to say, with Unibet, massive site, like making those sorts of changes is going to be really difficult, aren't they?
Take a brand like Betfair, where I used to be search manager. There were something like 11 content management systems running across the infrastructure.
Wow.
11.
That's a lot to deal with, isn't it?
It is, and exactly. And it's an awful lot of people who've got to know stuff to just tidy up basic SEO.
Yeah. Wow. When you put in that perspective, it does make SEO, although it is a difficult job anyway, it makes it that much more difficult to deal with when you have to deal with that amount of people and that amount of systems.
That's why
quite a challenge, I would imagine.
I think the future of SEO is less to do with the marketing people and much more to do with the techie people, and working with them to fix these huge, deep problems that have persisted on these websites for years. So, in summer, I get up at around 7. We got 2 little kids. They're usually screaming and running around the house, being crazy. So we organise them, get them ready to school. In the office for 9, obviously. Then it's because I'm a manager, I do lots of management stuff. So I'm not really in touch with a lot of the day-to-day SEO, which annoys me, I've got to say. But anyhow, a lot of it's just keeping people occupied with good tasks and organising strategy. Then in the evenings, I like to go canoeing. So I've been canoeing for many years, and one thing not many people know about me is that I used to race internationally. I've done 4 World Championships in canoeing, which is kind of a big deal. And
that is a really big deal. So you do that just as a recreational?
Yeah, these days I do. But my highest ever global ranking was 11th, which isn't bad. So it was my highest global seeding.
Not a lot of people that can say that they've got to 11th at world level.
Yeah.
That's
but anyway,
impressive. That's really impressive.
We don't talk about that because it's like SEOs don't do exercise, do they? Huh? But anyway, so no, and then it's training, and then it's home, and then it's the usual. But no, the big thing that makes my day different is I do a lot of training, which is fun.
Cool. Cool.
And I eat a lot of almonds.
Yes, we've seen you with your almond box today. They go everywhere with you.
They're great. Low glycemic index, instant food, very calorie dense. I love it. You know, that's an extremely good question, because ultimately you're down to very qualitative stuff. And the answer is you've got to look back at your own stuff and ask yourself, how much money am I prepared to spend to get those links? If you don't have the budget, then there's no conversation. But I think essentially, you've got to look at a very holistic thing. You've got to look at the majestic stuff. You've got to look at as I say, the SEMrush stuff. And I think you'll kind of know whether it's got the authority and the weight that makes it worthwhile getting direct traffic from, and also obviously therefore a link from, if that makes sense. So if you get placement on that site just for the traffic and all the SEO indices tied up as well, then it's worth going in. I would say in gambling, for example, Unibet never does this, but people will typically pay £25 a link.
Wow, okay.
That's typical price, but it varies massively from industry to industry. But like I say, folks, don't buy links at home. It's dangerous, okay? You could pay people. That always helps. Money does amazing things to people. But essentially, I think this is the thing about discriminating between. Remember, we talked about the concept of votes.
Yes.
Right. So in the beginning, when Google was around first, any link was a vote.
Yep.
Now we're getting to very few links are votes. The first question you've got to ask yourself, therefore, is: are all these spam sites actually votes at all? Do they count for anything? And what you're going to find is, when you analyze it, sites with AC rank 1 and 0 very often have no voting power whatsoever.
Yes, yeah.
What I think is more important is anchor text distribution, the velocity of those new links, and so on, that show that it was an automated process on sites that were designed specifically for being link donor sites.
Yes, yeah.
But the thing about those sites is there's usually someone behind them, scratch record.
Yes.
There's usually somebody behind them doing stuff, and that means you can pay them off and get stuff off.
Okay.
But generally, what I found in my experience is that there are very few bad sites. There are very few bad sites that are worth getting off your. What am I trying to say? Sorry, I'm being a bit long-winded on this one. Yes, there are sites you've got to get rid of. You've got to pay people to get rid of them.
Yeah.
Exactly what those sites are depends on what industry sector you're in and what kind of key phrase you're after and all that kind of stuff.
Okay. And finally, where do you see SEO in 5 years?
I see it in the domain of techies.
Okay.
I see it in the domain of PR.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for your time, Nick.
Well, cheers, Darren.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks.
you.
All right. Cheers.